Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because, honestly, we're about to embark on a truly mind-bending journey into the fundamental nature of our universe. We're going to completely dismantle how you view the world around you and rebuild it from the ground up using some of the most fascinating concepts from our source material today. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's waste no time and jump right into our first major question.
Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to take a quick second and just look at your own hands, or, look at the screen of the device you're using right now to view this. Intuitively, we all just assume that reality is made up of static things. We think of the universe as this giant collection of solid, unchanging building blocks, like little particles stacked on top of each other, kind of like microscopic Lego bricks. But what if I told you that everything you're looking at isn't made of isolated things at all? If reality isn't a collection of static particles, then what exactly is going on right in front of our eyes?
Section 1. The illusion of objects.
This brings us to the first core concept we really need to grasp today. Those isolated objects we think we see every single day, the things we touch and interact with, they're actually a cosmic illusion. Our brains trick us into seeing solid, distinct items separated by space. But the reality is far more dynamic and deeply interconnected. At a fundamental level, reality is a chaotic cycle. Step 1, interact. 2, combine. 3, separate. 4, reorganize. Everything you see is actually made of interacting patterns constantly shifting, constantly moving, and constantly running through these exact 4 steps in a rapid, never-ending cycle. It's a literal blur of activity at the fundamental level, an endless ocean of patterns combining, breaking apart, and reorganizing in real time.
Section 2. How patterns persist.
Now, you might be wondering, if everything is just a chaotic, shifting mess of interactions, how does anything actually stick around? How do we have a stable world at all? Well, the patterns that make up our universe are constantly changing, but not randomly. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that even though these patterns are constantly in motion, fluctuating and reorganizing, they aren't just doing whatever they want. They follow specific pathways. While the changes are constant, certain configurations naturally find stability. They hit this sweet spot where they just manage to hold together amidst all the turbulence.
Let me read this exactly as it appears in our source because it's absolutely crucial. When patterns combine in certain ways, they begin to persist, not because something forces them to, but because they can. I mean, think about the sheer elegance of that. The stability isn't forced by some outside hand. There's no external pressure squeezing these patterns together to make them stay. It's simply a natural, unforced outcome. When certain combinations randomly lock together in a stable way, they survive, because they can.
Section 3. Emergence without a blueprint. We just learned that persistence is totally unforced. But how does that unforced persistence actually lead to the incredibly complex world we live in? It happens through a process where structure spontaneously appears, without any pre-planned design whatsoever. So the crucial point is right here in this comparison. The old view assumed there had to be a predefined design, some central control dictating where all the solid objects go. But the new view entirely flips that script. It's all about interaction, spontaneous emergence, and temporary configurations. Structure is never imposed from the top down. There is no central control. There's no blueprint telling the universe how to build an apple or a mountain. Instead, structure always emerges from the bottom up, born purely out of these spontaneous, stable interactions.
What looks like an object is actually a stable pattern, a temporary configuration that holds together. I really want to let that profound thought sink in for a moment. Apply this to your everyday life. That coffee mug on your desk, the chair you're sitting on, even the most solid object you can possibly imagine. It's not a permanent thing. Actually, scratch that. It's more like an event. It's just a temporary, persistent configuration of patterns. It just happens to be holding together right now. Look at the contrast between a mountain and a spark. Some structures last longer. A mountain might hold its pattern for millions of years. Others disappear quickly, lasting just a fraction of a second. But they're all part of the exact same universal interaction process. And this brilliantly illustrates the grand unification of this concept. Whether a structure lasts a millisecond or a millennia, absolutely everything operates under the exact same universal interaction process. Time is just a measure of how long that specific configuration manages to hold its shape before reorganizing again. Let's move to Section 4, Reality as a Process, and see how this builds into our final worldview. We've gone from interacting patterns to spontaneous structure, and now we need to initiate our final zoom out to redefine the entirety of reality itself. As we zoom out from the micro-level interactions to the macro-level universe,
we see this incredible nesting effect. Simple interactions multiply to create incredibly complex structures, which then interact with each other to create even more complex structures. It's systems within systems, patterns within patterns. To put that into perspective, a single drop of water contains more than a sextillion atoms, all furiously interacting right now. That's a billion trillions. From those microscopic subatomic fluctuations all the way up to towering galaxies, it's the exact same phenomenon, scaling up infinitely. The entire universe is a tapestry of emergent patterns.
Which brings us to this ultimate defining concept. Reality is not a collection built from objects, but processes that stabilize over time. Let me say that again. Reality is fundamentally a verb, not a noun. It is an active, ongoing event. You don't exist in a universe of things. You exist in a universe of happenings. Everything is a process, and what we experience as reality is simply the collection of processes that have managed to stabilize long enough for us to interact with them.
But this massive shift in perspective leaves us staring at an even deeper, more profound mystery. If all of this complex structure, all of these persistent patterns can emerge spontaneously like this, what is the role of the vacuum? What is the true nature of the empty space that serves as the canvas for all these interactions? I'm going to leave that lingering, provocative question right here on the screen for you to ponder. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep looking past the illusion of objects, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to decode the fascinating patterns of our universe.